Okay, guys, for the mask project, we're gonna have two options. One, you can make either a mask, like I showed you guys in the last Google slideshow that has all the videos on how to do that. The other option you have is making two emoji faces, just because they're a little bit easier, they're a little bit simpler, but that's why I want you to do two of them. If you do two of them, it gives you a little bit more work. So, ideally, if you can, what I did is I printed out my favorite emoji, or one of the ones that I use most regularly, okay? And that's the one that I'm gonna be working on making. So it's nice to have a picture in front of you while you're building it so that you can see all the little details and really get the precision right. Now, here's the thing. When you make something that is exactly or if you're trying to recreate something that is very well known, such as an emoji that you guys use on a constant daily basis, okay? It is very important that the precision and it is very clean and neat looking so that people can see that, yes, that's exactly what you're looking for. It's exactly what you're trying to make. Because if there's any kind of different discrepancy, if it's a little bit different, if it's a little bit off, or if the circles aren't just quite perfect, it's gonna look, not real. It's gonna look, like there's something wrong with it, okay? And that's the problem with doing stuff where you're copying something. People automatically know exactly what it's supposed to look like. So let's talk about a couple of things that we're gonna be grabbing here. As far as tools go, first things first, you will need some newspaper, quite a bit, probably about 2 full sheets of newspaper. You're gonna need 2 of these size bowls, okay? They're about 5 inches in diameter, but they're nice and round. So that's gonna give us our emoji shape because we're gonna use it kind of like a dot or a round shape, okay? Comb, needle tool, sponge, blue rib, and then a couple of different modeling tools. Different ones will do different things, and you're probably not gonna use them until you get down to the fine tuning of your project. But I just grab them anyway, and just gonna go ahead and do that. Now we're gonna use a similar method to what we did with the regular mask, okay? I'm gonna show you how that's gonna work. Now I've got a slab here. Now this is a huge slab. This is like way bigger than it needs to be. It does not necessarily need to be that big. But as we will with all of our projects, we wanna make sure that we start out by smoothing out that canvas texture, that pesky canvas texture. We do not want that on our emoji. I do not know of any emoji, okay, that exists that has the texture of canvas on it, all right? So if I see that, obviously I am going to be taking points away. If you do not do that, okay, you will lose 5 points just for spending 15 seconds doing that, or less than that, okay? Now, I'm not gonna need all of this clay right this minute, so what I can do is I can kind of cut out a large square, okay? That's going to be the one that I'm gonna use. And I'm gonna use that same drape mold technique that we used for our mask project, but it's gonna be a little bit different. So, your second bowl, one has water in it, one does not, okay? We're gonna take our second bowl, we're gonna turn it upside down. We're then going to tear our newspaper. Now, when you tear newspaper, believe it or not, there's a direction in which it'll tear easier. So if I tear it this way, okay, horizontal, I'm gonna tear it into a couple of strips. If I try tearing it this way, see how it doesn't tear nice and straight, okay? It's all kind of crooked and it came off in a little piece. So find the way that it tears in one way, all right? And you're gonna tear off, I don't know, about 10 or 15 strips, so you can do it as you go. All right, and then we're gonna use a technique very similar to paper mache, if you've ever done paper mache as an elementary school student, okay? So take your strip of newspaper, we're gonna dip the front end in the water and then run it right through so the strip of newspaper is wet. And then I'm going to drape it over the bowl. And then I'm gonna repeat this process. Now the next one that I do this to, okay, I'm gonna go to a little bit of an angle so that this covers, okay, the whole thing. So I'm gonna go around and I wanna cover this bowl with the wet newspaper. This is gonna be real key as we get going, okay? That. Now you only need one layer, you don't need multiple layers. It's not just because you have one layer that goes all the way over everything. That's all that we really need. This is just basically forming a barrier so that it doesn't, the clay that we're gonna drape over this doesn't stick to the plastic bowl. We know that that can happen very easily. I got one more spot here that I wanna make sure I get covered just to be sure. There we go. Now, the reason why I wet the newspaper is because it makes it very pliable. So now, okay, I can then just kind of pat this flat, and this will then take on that perfect round shape around my bowl, okay, just like so, or at least pretty close to perfect. All right, so my bowl is completely covered with newspaper. I am then going to take my slab, okay, and I'm going to drape it over, okay? Doesn't matter which way you go, but I'm gonna drape this over the top of it, all right? Now, here's the important thing. What you're gonna have to see is, set this stuff aside so you guys can kind of center that up again, okay? The problem is that if I push on these two sides, well, I get a big, place where it pops up there. So if I push on these two sides, now I gotta pop up over here. So what you have to do is you have to actually kind of form it around and stretch it around the bowl so that it will take on more of that shape. Now what's happening here is as the clay is doing that, it's kind of stretching, and I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll bring this down a little bit closer, okay? But you can see that I've got some cracks and that kind of stuff starting to happen. All right, not a big deal, okay? Those we can fix later on, okay? So just make sure that this is going to wrap around, okay? And I'm kind of pressing it into it. I'm not squeezing it too tight, but I want to make sure that this comes out in a nice round shape that's stretched around it, okay? So that the rest of the clay is nice and flat. All right, so there we go, okay? So I've got that draped over. This is now pretty much flat, all right? Take our needle tool, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and just cut the bottom of this off because we don't need any of this for right now. We can save this for later for our other parts. Okay, because this is already smoothed out, so I can put that aside for right now. Okay, and what you'll notice is if I lift this up, is that it's not really wrapped all the way around here, okay? But that's not a big deal, because what I wanna do is, I want a nice clean edge on the bottom of my project, okay? The bottom of my emoji face here, all right? So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take my needle tool, very rigidly, hold it nice and steady there, about 1/4 to 1/2 inch above the table surface till it touches the inside of my bowl or the outside of my bowl. I'm then going to spin the bowl, but I'm going to keep my needle tool in the exact same spot, and if I get lucky, I should make a perfect circle that goes right around it. Okay, so that I can take that off, make sure that that's nice and flat, and then as you can see, it's not exactly perfect, but it's definitely straighter than it was. Okay, and that's gonna be how we're gonna start our emoji face, all right? We'll go on to how to attach the other pieces in the next video, just because this one's getting a little too long. So I'll see you in the next one.